So, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, right where you are. Welcome to the Great Morning and Steve. My name is Moses Elijah, and I give like a new, more like a new subtitle. I'm a full stack digital marketer. You can ask for that to later. All right. So, today actually we're talking about the art of podcasting. It's a very, very interesting topic because there's a whole lot actually in store for you if you understand what is involved and you apply yourself to it. So, what is podcasting? Let me put everything into context. All right. Perhaps maybe you've listened to some podcasts, maybe from SoundCloud or from Spotify or from Anchor or Google Podcast One. All right. Basically, a podcast or
Sorry,
podcast.
Mr. Elijah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Anthony, like,
I think I'm hearing two voices.
can anyone also hear that to my end as well? So I think it's clear.
No, it's clear from my end. It's clear from here.
All right. All right, not a problem. Can I continue, sir? Anyway, back to reality. All right. So, all right. So, let me see. Okay, you're hearing echoes. Oh, someone said hearing echoes. All right. Let me try to see.
Yeah, I think it's from my end. You can go on.
All right. Thank you, sir. So, everyone, when you hear about podcasting, someone saying, I'm a podcaster, someone saying, I create audio content. It's very easy. Don't mind. Podcasting is basically the creation and the distribution of audio content across digital platforms or engagement. In other words, you have a voice, you have an idea, you have a concept in your head, you have something you believe that you can share to the world, not necessarily through visual form, not necessarily through written form, but through audio form. As long as you have a voice, you can start a podcast. All right. So now you're wondering, how then can I start this thing? I mean, what are involved? How do I do this thing? Like, these are questions people actually ask themselves when it comes to the creation of podcasts. So first things first, you need to have a plan, right? There needs to be a plan on what you do. You need to have an idea, all right? Something you want to talk about, all right? Two things goes together. You need to have an idea. You need to have an ideal, all right? So the idea is about the initiative. It's about the concept. It's about the flow of thought. While the ideal is about the perspective towards the idea. It's about the philosophy towards the idea. It's about your set of values towards the idea. So you need to have the idea, then you need to prepare. So there's a need for preparation, right? So from ideation, concept, moving into preparation, then you go into recording or the drafting, then you go into the editing of the work. So you need to have a structure, all right? So there's an easy flow of thought. There's an easy flow of thought. So having a monthly planner will give you a huge advantage when it comes to you starting up your own podcast. All right. So, give me a minute, please. I think there's a noise somewhere. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the brief interruption. Okay, so now it's very important. There are things that you need to take into consideration when you are starting your own podcast. All right, and this is based on statistics, not as though it just out of the blues. Okay, so firstly, one key thing brings people into what you do or into your podcast. All right, so the topic needs to be interesting. All right. So podcast is as though you're having a dialogue. So you're having a conversation, the flow of thought, the energy, the vibe, the thinking, the sparking. So you need to just put yourself into what you want to talk about. And there's no better way to do than having an interesting topic, at least. Very, very important. So interesting topics are the first tool for striking conversation. Interesting topic. So when you have an interesting topic, the second thing is your what? Presentation style. For some persons, they can talk like, hey, hi, how you doing? You know, the energy, the vibe. While for some other persons, they can like, hey, hello, my name is this, my name is that. So you need to understand your pattern of conversation. Perhaps you are a sanguine, perhaps you are a flag, perhaps you are introverted, perhaps you are extroverted. You need to know yourself. So ultimately, just be original, right? You don't need to fake it, you don't need to clean it, just be you. Okay. So the account can speak that when people listen to you, listen more to you. And there's a way you can speak when people listen to you, don't to run away from you. So understand your style, be you, be authentic, be original. Very important. Then the third one actually is the timing and the instrument. Now, time is a constituting factor for audience attention. Please, you don't want to have, a podcast that takes about 2 hours of conversation. Well, you can have such. For instance, we listen to someone like Dr. Jordan Peterson, or Joe Rogan, or David Samuel Smith, and Ben Shapiro. All right, all these guys are amazing in what they do, and because they have an interesting topic and a very structured flow of thought, people want to listen to them more, even if it's 2 hours or 3 hours. All right. So time is very important. You need to know what you want to talk about, and you need to have it within the shortest possible time or the longest possible time if it's interesting. Then the next point actually is the platform. The platform, ease of reach is a primary factor in determining the scale of reach. In other words, what tool are you using? What kind of tool do you want to use? Are you using Anchor? Are you using Spreaker? Are you using Spotify? All right, there are a lot of platforms, a lot of tools out there you can use, but the key thing is use a tool that's accessible to everyone, and it's very, very easy to do. So, what then, or how does the engagement timeline look like? Well, this is just like a drafting we can actually use. So, firstly, start with the descriptive plot. So, let me make it more practical. For instance, you're like saying, hey, hi, good morning. My name is Moses Elijah. Welcome to today's podcast series. And over the course of today, we're talking about the art of podcasting. Of course, you're all interested in learning about this. So in a way, you start with a descriptive plot. Don't just start and say, hey, hello, welcome. Do you know, or you just go straight to the point and you are dishing out points. It doesn't work that way. So podcasting is more like a journey. Take your audience through the journey. It's like storytelling. Everybody likes stories. Why? Because it is engaging, because of the flow in the process. So start with a descriptive plot. Secondly, start with relatable narrative. Nothing makes engagement so interactive like analogies. Analogies are more like stories, are more like connecting dots. So for instance, if you say life is like a triangle, sometimes you go up, sometimes you come down. Now, even though the audience might not remember what you say, but the moment they think about triangle, they say, oh, sometimes you go up, sometimes you come down. Now, that is for them a definition of life based on what you say. So, analogy spices conversation, narrative stories spices conversation. The more you are able to speak in a very friendly, story like manner, or in a very friendly, relatable manner, you have the attention of the audience. Now, the third one is consistency in content delivery. Don't talk about fashion today, and you talk about football tomorrow, and you talk about whatever you talk about. All right. So there needs to be a consistency in the content you deliver. So, what kind of content do you want to talk about? If you are talking about fashion, be all about fashion. In other words, build a niche for yourself. If you are a DevOps engineer, or if you are a machine learning enthusiast, whatever it is, because you can talk about anything, whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. All right. Ensure that you go deeper. All right. You go deeper in the quality of the conversation you have. very important. And the last one, give the audience what they want or desire to have. Very, very important. Sometimes the audience don't know what they want, all right? But deep down within yourself, you can have a list of options of the things you think they will want, and you talk about it. So whatever it is that you can talk about that can get the attention of others, voila, boom, you have them. So these things are very, very important. So these are podcast statistics, all right, and something you can take into consideration. Well, the stat actually has shown that a lot of persons actually connect to content that are striking into comedy. Now, comedy does not mean you need to be stupid, all right? But anything that has the blend of fun, the blend of creativity, the blend of energy, the blend of the spice of stress relief, people tend to connect with such kind of sections because they can laugh and get excited, all right? Why some other persons like to connect, 20% like to connect with news, right? Despite being the anti-norms, educational content matters. That's why I love Dr. Jordan Peterson and a lot of other persons as well. So know the kind of content, know the kind of genre of podcast content you want to put out there. Why some other persons like culture, entertainment. So ask yourself the question, what do I like? Secondly, what do my audience like? And how can I find that linking bridge between what I like and what they like? And some other times, just talk about your conviction, talk about your interest, talk about your story, talk about yourself. And amazingly, you'll be wowed because you'll find people who have similar connections with the things you have interest with. All right. So this is also one key thing to take into consideration is the demography of your listeners. All right. So in a way, with the age and the gender, the age and the gender tends to connect together. It has been shown that Gen Z, those who were born in maybe in the year 2000, upwards like 2022 or 23, all right, they like things that are high energy, they like things that are kind of like curiosity stimulating. They like to participate in whatever is striking. Well, they don't have a full awareness of time or purpose or anything. So whatever it is that you can say to them that can get their attention, right? You get this guy. So the way you talk to a 16 years old or someone that's 18 will be far different on the way you talk to someone that is 45 or someone that is 12. They're totally different. Are you aware that you can actually create a podcast set of series for children within the age of 10, 11, 12? Yes. So there is no restriction. There is no age bracket restriction. If you can talk, if you can speak, if you can say something meaningful, you can talk to anybody. So gender also matters, right? It has been shown that to a great extent, women are more receptive to words than men to a great extent, and they attach emotional conditions to the things they hear. Men are more kind of like inspired or moved by what they see, when are moved by what they hear. So that also gives you kind of like an overview on the kind of content you have to create. You can make a content mixed gender, or you can make a content streamlined to a specific gender. In other words, whatever you're talking about is still going to get the attention of people. So educational level, well, it's very important because the way a high school dropout will reason will be far different from the way a maybe an undergraduate who's in school reasons. Two different perspectives. One of them has a broadened array of experiences with respect to real life scenarios, while the other one doesn't necessarily care or their range of experience is limited. Everything we say in essence when it comes to podcasts and stuff is know your audience. When you know your audience, you know how to relate with them. So information flow process. So whether or not you can talk about music, comedy, TV and films, literature, video games, and sports. So there is no restriction per se. There is no restriction in the kind of content you put out there. The only thing is know your audience. Know it so well that when you speak, people get excited to listen to you. Very, very important. Now, distribution channels. For some persons, when they create content, they just leave it on Anchor or Spreaker or Spotify. But you can actually populate your content across other platforms. What does that mean? When you create your content, your audio content on maybe Anchor, right? Don't just leave it there. Don't just leave it there. You can spread it, right? There are tools that can enable you create, story-like narrative with those same content you created, the audio content, and you populate it. You can share it on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. You can share it you can share connecting link to Clubhouse. Clubhouse is an amazing audio content platform. You can share these tools to anywhere, any area. You can distribute your content. So in other words, don't leave the things you create seen on one platform. Populate yourself across all platforms. Facebook is your friend, YouTube is your friend, Instagram is your friend. And the reason why you see the statistic this way is because Facebook is a multi-content platform. In other words, it accepts both written, audio, and video. While YouTube is more of videos, but there's a way you can actually make a motion-related video using your podcast content as the background sound. That will work. Instagram is more centered around quality of the image and videos, but it's still a platform that can work well. So now, the question is, what are the platforms to use? There are a lot of platforms out there for you to use. There is Spreaker, there is Anchor, there is Google Podcast One, there is Podbean, there is Vimeo, right? And there are a whole lot of them out there. In fact, even your phone recording feature, all right, can also be used. All you need to do is just stay in a very quiet environment, not so much noisy, and you just speak out your passion, speak out your energy, speak out your drive, speak out your conviction, speak out the things that make you excited, because excitement is contagious. Speak out the things that make you pain, because your pain also is contagious. Speak out the information you have, because that information you have within you can put an advantage to someone out there. So there is no restriction for you actually. And guess what? Most of these platforms are free to use, by the way. So what are the podcast infographics that determines key success? Number one, be valuable, very important, be valuable. Number two, multitask. What does it mean to multitask? Well, have a structure of the content you want to say or the things you want to say. All right. Don't just create a podcast series today and you don't have like a layout of what to say next week, next 3 weeks. No, have a consistency in the flow of information you create. Number three is mobile friendly. You can start with your phone. You don't necessarily need to start with a laptop. Use whatever device you have accessible to you. And number four, push your content far and wide. Very important. So when you start creating, all right, push it, publish it across all platforms. And when you do that, you go global. Now, what does it mean going global? In other words, you can think global but start local. Localize the global ideas in your head and communicate it out there to the public. And lastly, don't start charging people once you start podcasting. If you want to make money, give value first. That's the amazing about it. Joe Rogan makes on average every single year roughly about 30 to about $40 million from his YouTube channel, his podcasting content, and a whole lot of other things. People give him money. Like people are listening to you and like, man, this guy is making sense. Bam! All right. So in a way, be valuable. When you're valuable and you're spitting out content, voila, you have the attention of people. So podcast platform activities, we're almost done though, right? So these are platforms where you can actually leverage on. And each of these platforms have more like the active days. All right. Facebook, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? It works across these platforms as well. YouTube, you can publish your content Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Instagram and others. Well, this is just a rough start, okay? But know how other platforms work. So when you are pushing out your content, you have the highest reactiveness. Very, very important. So regions, podcast regions. Let me tell you this. Even Africa gets excited about podcasts. Just in case someone might be wondering, I'm in Africa. Do Nigeria listen to podcasts? Of course they do. Yes, podcast is more like the modernized version of you listening to your radio. All right. If back then you used to have a radio station and all the stuff, podcasting is more like digital publishing of those traditional means. So Europe actually also have one of the highest listening audience in the world. Asia also listens, Australia and Africa, all the continents as well. But know your audience, know who you are targeting, and push. So how do you start? Now that's all right. So number one, Google friendly intros. For instance, hello, good morning. My name is Moses Elijah, and today I'm taking you on the art of maybe public speaking or anything. Or yo, have fun. How are you all doing? Today is a great day, very, very energizing day. And believe me, you're going to get a whole lot of value. Or hello, good day. Trust your day has been great. And life has been also. Today is a very great day. And we're talking about how you can start the podcast series. So be yourself. In other words, be yourself. You don't need to sound like me, sound like you. All right. Now, secondly, list out the topics, your show topic. Have a list. This is just like a summary of everything. Right? Have a list of the things you want to do. Number three, you can promote your guests. Now, one of the advantages of using Anchor is that you can invite people to come together and speak. So you can have like a panel discussion. Yes, using Anchor and other platforms as well. Now, after that, build community, very important. Community strengthen the impact of your reach. Community strengthens the impact of your reach. So don't just speak for yourself alone. I speak, and when you start gathering people who listen to what you say, build community around. And it's very easy. Communities are built around ideas, and the ideas are built around people. And lastly, self-promotion. So when you start speaking, promote yourself. All right. Don't just create a content and leave it there. Let me know that you have audio content that are interesting. I will listen to it as well. So basically, these are the things about podcasting. It's very, very interesting. You can talk about fashion, talk about gossip, talk about whatever you want to talk about tech, talk about AI, talk about ChatGPT, talk about marriage, relationship, talk about anything, talk about society, talk about government, talk about anything, movies. All right, there is no restriction on the kind of content you can put out there. So, in summary, don't stop yourself. Podcasting is the tool to give you, listening to me right now, global reach, global exposure, and of course, an experience that solidifies your existence being alive. Thank you. Any questions so far?
Wow. That was great.
Yay!
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
Rich,
That,
lady
that
guys.
was so great. You just need to check the chat. You need to check the chat box. You need to
Yeah,
see
I can
the
see.
comment. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
You
I don't know if anybody has questions because I
please.
have questions to ask. So if you have questions, just go on first.
You're most welcome. All right. Please ask your questions. All right. And please do feel free to drop, a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. And you rate this section on the comment section as well, please. Thank you. So please ask your, how do I start? Who has some
Elijah,
Yes.
thank you. This kind of an amazing stuff. But
Yeah.
I wanted to just say kudos to you because a lot of people don't understand the power of a podcast, and then it's something that people need to adopt.
Yeah.
Yes. Although I'm not good